Hi friends, my name is Bhavya Mangla. I am automotive qualified auditor. I am doing audit for the automotive sector for the last 17 years. I'm again back with a very interesting topic. What is the key difference between variable control chart and attribute control chart? So before going further, let's go a little bit to the history to understand about it. So Mr. Shewhart in 1920s started plotting these control charts to see the variation in the process, to understand that why this variation is coming and how much variation is correct and what to do with that variation. And based on that, these control charts related to variable and attribute, they came into practice. In general, if you see into the industry, majority of the cases, variable control charts are comparatively more popular because they may be giving the much better result and more quicker result in comparison to the attribute control chart. But it's important to understand what is the key difference between variable control chart and attribute control chart. So when we talk about variable, the intent is that, say for example, if you consider this particular pen and we are measuring a particular dimension, say the diameter of the pen is 5 plus minus say 0.1. So how much is the dimension that is coming? 4.9, 4.95, 5, 5.1, something like that. That is variable. And when we calculate all these values in numbers and when we plot, it is a variable control chart. Now, when the same pen, when we see it in a different perspective, what is the roughness about it, maybe the shade, maybe the color, and then we see that how many pieces are okay or rejected. In that time, we are talking about attribute. And then when we plot those values, they are called attribute control chart. Now, one thing which is very important is before we are going to plot or calculate this data with respect to variable and attribute, there are certain things that needs to be taken care. First of all, we need to make sure that the environment in which we are doing the study is congenial or suitable for doing the study. Secondly, the person who is doing the study, that person should be competent for doing that particular study. Thirdly, the kind of measuring instrument that we are using at that particular time, that should be calibrated and that should fulfill the requirement. Another important requirement is that we should make sure that there are no special causes that are coming to the process, so that whatever values are coming, that are correct and we can take a right decision based on that control chart. And similarly, there can be many more things that needs to be taken care before going ahead with the study. Another important thing to understand is that what kind of chart needs to be used for variable and attribute study. So when we talk about variable control chart, when the sample size is 1, say for example, when we are checking the viscosity in the paint shop, so we cannot have many samples at one point of time. So there will be only one sample. So at that time, we can use IMR chart. But when the sample size is more, but less than 8, at that time we use xbar chart, mean and range chart, which is most popular in industry. But whenever the sample size is more than 8, at that time we will use mean and S, that is standard deviation chart, XS chart. So these are the different kind of popular charts that we can use in variable control chart. When we talk about attribute control chart, so there can be two types. One is with respect to number of defectives and the second is number of defects. When we are talking about number of defectives, say for example in this particular pen, when we are talking about how many pens we checked and how many pens are okay and rejected, at that time we'll use P chart. But when we are talking about a particular pen, because in a particular pen there can be much more than one defect, say the defect can be with respect to the roughness, it can be with respect to shade or color. So we are talking about number of defects per unit. So at that time we'll use U chart. So now to talk specifically what are the key differences between the variable and attribute control chart. So first thing is, when we talk about variable, we are talking about the counted numbers. When we talk about attribute, we are talking about the measured. Then secondly, when we are talking about attribute control chart, we are talking about the discrete data like good, not good, go, no go. But when we are talking about variable control chart, we are talking about the continuous data. When we talk about variable control chart, we are talking about quantitative value. Say for example, the dimension, how much it is coming, or maybe the thickness, how much it is coming, or maybe the temperature, how much it is coming. But when we are talking about attribute control chart, at that time we are talking about quantitative data, number of rejects, number of pieces okay, number of times people are coming in office on time, something like that. If that qualitative type data is there, then we call it as a attribute control chart. When we talk about variable control chart, comparatively it is more costly than attribute, but based on a small sample size we can take a quick decision in comparison to the attribute control chart where we need a much more sample size. When we talk about variable control chart, our intent is to see that how quickly we can find out whenever the process is going out of control. So it is comparatively easier and quicker in case of variable control chart in comparison to the attribute control chart. In case of variable control chart, the improvements can be quantified, but in case of attribute control chart, improvement cannot be quantified. And in general, whenever we are measuring the variable control chart, it is done in the form of a pair, mean and range. If I talk about some of the key challenges that industry is facing with respect to the control charts, the first and the foremost is in majority of the cases you will find the variable control chart and not the attribute control chart. Could be because the software is easily available with respect to variable control chart. Then secondly, for attribute control chart, there are different kind of chart like P and P, C and U chart. But how often people are clear about these charts and they are using it? Because in general, our intent is that whichever thing is easily possible, let's do that. So if I talk about the summary, the key difference between variable and attribute control chart, when we talk about variable control chart, we are talking about the measured data, the data which is quantified and which is continuous. When we talk about attribute control chart, we are talking about the data which is counted, which is qualitative in nature and discrete. My next video will be in continuation of this, and that will be with respect to the attribute control charts like P and P, C and U. What are the key differences between them? I'm regularly getting a lot of feedback to your side and they're helping me to understand your expectations. So please do continue that. And in case you're liking these kind of videos and you want to understand a little bit more about it, you can click the below link and you'll find a blog there, and there you will find this information in much more detail. And if you are liking these kind of videos and the blogs, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and my website bhavyamangla.com. Thank you.